Welcome, GCSE teachers. Whether you navigated here because you're interested in the mini course covering the advanced use of Google Sheets, or whether you found your way here due to the fact that you were in the 3-hour professional development course covering the advanced use of all Google Docs suite of apps, I welcome you and hope that you find this video interesting and informative, and will more importantly find ways to further integrate Google Sheets into your classroom and into your teaching experience. I would like to start with a quick review, and you may have seen this if you've taken some of my other mini courses, and that is simply the review of what Google Docs exactly is, because Google Sheets is part of the Google Docs suite of apps, and the entire Google Docs suite of apps operates in something we call the cloud. You may have heard this term cloud computing or things stored in the cloud. The cloud is simply the internet, and what that is and what that does for us is it allows us to create a document in one place, say on your laptop, and it allows you to save it to the internet, and it allows you to then edit it and make changes on any device that you have, no matter what the operating system is or how it works. So for example, you can make changes on your iPad, you can make changes on an Android phone and a Windows, after it was created on a Windows-based laptop. It can work and edit in all of those environments, and basically any place that you have access to the internet, you are able to access that document and make changes, and there's no functionality loss or no change in the quality of the document. It may look a little bit different, but it exists in all of those places at the same time, essentially. And I've mentioned this as well, if you've taken one of the other mini courses or if you're in the 3-hour professional development course, that Google Docs itself can be a bit of a confusing name. It's a great product, but Google Docs refers to the entire suite of apps that we have: forms and drawing and slides and docs and sheets. However, it also refers to the word processing program Google Docs. So a lot of times when people are talking about Google Docs, they may mean this, but they also may mean this. So in this case, if I use Google Docs, I'm obviously referring to Google Sheets because that's the one we're talking about in this presentation. So they are used interchangeably, which can be a tad confusing for some people, but we will obviously be talking about Google Sheets in this presentation. Google Sheets, if you have never used it, is roughly equivalent to Microsoft Excel. It is not quite as powerful as Excel, but it does have some interesting features that Excel does not have, and that's what I'll kind of accentuate during the presentation today a little bit. Basically, Google Sheets allows you to manage data, analyze data, create graphs and charts, and collaborate with others while you're doing each of those three things. At its most basic level, that's essentially what Google Sheets is for and how we would use it in an educational setting. I'm going to cover a number of features in today's video that, instead of having a couple of long segments like some of the other mini course videos have had, I will have 11 short segments, I guess actually 12 short segments because one of them is broken into two parts. So I will cover functions, how to import HTML data, conditional formatting by date and conditional formatting by score, color scale conditional formatting, sorting based on the data in one column, how to protect a sheet or a range of data, how to use the Explore feature, how to use a filter, how to create a filter view, how to insert a graph or a chart, and how to create a map. If you don't know what some of those things mean, that's okay. I'm going to walk through those and teach you how to use those, and hopefully they will be useful in your classroom. I tried to structure this course and all the courses, but this one in particular, because Google Sheets is something I think is so useful, so that I put examples of things like create a map that could be used in a social studies class. Some of the functions would never be used except for maybe in a higher level stats class at the high school, but some of the things such as conditional formatting could be used by every teacher in every grade level, and are come in great for analyzing data for slows and things like that we all have to do on a daily or yearly basis anyway, as we go about analyzing student data. As a final reminder, when you have finished this video, if you would like to take the quiz in order to earn your badge for a mini course, you can do that simply by clicking the link in the YouTube channel the video description for this YouTube video, rather, not in the channel, but in the video description for this YouTube video, and you will earn a badge. Those of you who are in the 3-hour professional development course, you will earn a badge that certifies you in the advanced use of all of the Google Docs suite of apps. But if you are just interested in Sheets, you can certainly take that quiz. One final reminder, I do like to always point out the Google apps are very useful, the Google Docs suite of apps, because they are what we call device agnostic. And as some of the buildings look at going to devices away from the iPad, anything you create on a Google Doc is going to be accessible on any future device. So if you have things on Pages or Keynote, that's wonderful, that's great, but if we switch to a new device, those are no longer going to be usable, whereas anything you create here with Google Docs is going to be usable in the future. So I really like to encourage the use of Google Docs, and that's why it's kind of our preferred, not kind of, it is our preferred productivity suite here at Greencastle Community School Corporation. Now I'm going to jump into some real world practice. There are going to be 11 short segments, 12 short segments on how to cover each of those topics that I mentioned in the previous section. So I'll jump in with functions in just a moment. Welcome back, GCSE teachers. In this section, I'm going to talk about some of the functions that are available to you in Google Sheets. Functions are also known as formulas. Some people call them the same thing, though correctly they are called functions. You will notice that I have my calculator open here, and the reason I have that open is because I want to tell you that you should never have to use a calculator if you are using a spreadsheet program, whether that's Excel or Google Sheets or numbers on your iOS device. A well-designed spreadsheet will never require the use of a calculator. You might want to use a calculator to double check something to make sure you're correct, but once you have the idea of how to do things, you should never need to use a calculator because a spreadsheet program is many times more powerful than just your basic calculator and will do anything and everything and much more than what a calculator will do. Okay, so what I did here is I have 10 sets of random data, one in each column. So column A is a set of data, column B is a set of data, and in the 12th row over here, I have the title of what I'm going to calculate, what I'm going to show you. In black, highlighted in red, and in yellow, we're going to get the actual answer to that. You need to know where the function button is, obviously, in order to do functions. I have zoomed in so that you can see a little bit easier. So mine is showing up in the More option. Yours may not be in the More option. It may simply be on the taskbar that you have up here. If it is, there's the sigma there, and you can click the down arrow, and it takes you to functions. And there are many, many functions that are available to you. I'm going to click the More functions here just to show you. And you can see as I scroll down through this list, there are literally hundreds of functions that Google Sheets can undertake. Some of them are well beyond the scope of what we would ever use in school, but some of them might be useful for you individually. For example, there are a number of financial ones for budgeting, for loans, and things like that that could be interesting to use. I'm going to stick with some of the ones that I think might be useful for you here in class, but if you want to explore those, you certainly can do that. In the first column, column A here, you can see we want to sum this set of data. So we could get out the calculator and we could add all of that up, but that would be very time consuming. And if we had lots of sets of data we wanted to sum, we would not want to enter all that information in the calculator. So we're going to use a function for that. So I am going to click the down arrow. I'm going to go to sum. Notice a couple of things happen. Up here in what is called the formula bar, or the function bar, it says f of x, and this tells me what I am inputting into that cell. So at A11, notice now cell A11 is blue and has a little question mark next to it because it says equals sum parentheses blank parentheses. The computer is basically saying, okay, you want me to summarize or you want me to sum this set of data. I need to know what set of data it is I'm going to sum. So while it's blue, it's waiting for you to input something. So with my mouse, I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag from A10 up through A1. Now notice that in the bar up here in the function bar, it says equals sum parentheses A1 colon A10. That's essentially telling the computer, I want you to sum all the data from A1 to A10. I could type in A1, comma, A2, comma, A3, comma, A4, so on and so forth, but that would be time consuming and not save me any time over the calculator. But A1 colon A10 just tells the computer you want that entire range from A1 to A10. It also gives me a little preview of what that number is going to be over here, and I'm simply going to hit enter and it gives me the sum. So again, to get that, I click the down arrow, I went to functions, I went to sum, and again it says equals sum now because I've overwritten the last version, and I'm going to highlight all of that, and I'm going to hit enter, and I will get the same answer again. If I wanted to manually type this in, I can certainly do that. I don't need to type in, I don't need to hit the function button every time. If I know the formula that I want to use, I'm going to delete this. If I just want to type equals sum parentheses, and I start to drag and collect the data and put close parentheses, I'm going to get the exact same answer. So you can put them in through the function command, or you can put them in through manually typing. That's entirely up to you. In the next column, column B, we're going to do the average. And these are the common functions, so I wanted to show those two that are available here on the function button. So it's going to be the same thing, except for this time it's going to be equals average, parentheses, nothing in the middle of it. And I'm going to simply highlight the data again before I click anything else, and I'm going to hit enter. And notice now it finds the average of that set of data, which is 401.9. Of course, if you wanted to change the rounding options of that, you can go to format and you can go to number, and you can choose how many decimal places, and you can explore many of the formats that are available to you there. I'm going to go with the automatic and let it round to 1 decimal place. Maximum comes in handy if you would want to find the maximum number, the highest number that is in that range. So if I just glance at that range, it looks like it's going to be 864 should be the highest number. So when I use the function for max, once I highlight everything and hit enter, it does indeed tell me that 864 is the maximum number. So if you have a large set of data, if you had hundreds of student test scores, and you want to see what the highest score was, highlight them all. Click a cell, type or enter the maximum function, and then highlight all the range of data, and it would tell you the maximum student score. I'm going to do the same thing here for column D, except it is going to be the minimum. And I'm simply going to select min, and I'm going to highlight the data. It looks like it should be 60, and it is. And that shows me the minimum. Notice that minimum and maximum obviously are both going to return for that range only. If I want to do the entire range of data, I'm going to have to select everything. But in this case, I'm just doing one column of data. Count is an interesting function. What this does is all it does is it counts the number of entries that have been submitted. So in this case, it's not going to add anything. It's not going to average anything. It's simply going to look at cells E1 through E10, and it's going to, if there is information in that cell, it's going to count it. If there is no information in that cell, it is going to not count it. So what should happen is I should get a value of 10 returned when I enter the count feature. Now notice that the count feature is on here. Actually, wasn't sure if it was on here or not. I was going to type it in manually, but it is here. So I'm going to click count, and then I am going to hit enter, and it does indeed tell me 10. Now, if I were to delete this 555 here, the count should go to 9, and it does. This comes in handy if you just want to see how many students have submitted something, how many scores were submitted. It can also, it doesn't just work with numbers. It can also work with yes, no answer. So if you've given a survey to people on a Google form and you want to see how many answered yes, do the count for the yes column, then do the count for the no column, and you can compare them very quickly and very easily. Put that that was 555, but it doesn't matter because it's just a count, so as long as something's in that cell. Greatest common divisor, obviously something that a lot of our math teachers are probably working with at various levels, RTI students, things like that. You can very quickly and very easily find the greatest common divisor of an entire range of data. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to manually type this one in because notice it is not shown in the functions over here. If I go to the more functions option, which I have open over here, if I want to search for divisor, I can do that, and I will see that it will give me the options of there are 4 functions that involve a divisor. I'm going to use the greatest common divisor just because I picked that one out because I thought it was one that could be interesting. And again, I'm going to start off anytime I want to use a formula. If I hit equal, that essentially tells the computer that, hey, this is a formula. It's not just a regular number, so treat this cell a little bit differently. And greatest common divisor is GCD. I just knew that from my previous research. So I type in GCD, and notice it tells me though, greatest common divisor of 1 or more integers. And so Google will give you a little pop-up and tell you what it is that your formula is trying to do for you. Hit my parentheses so I can select my range of data and close my parentheses. Always important when you're using a formula that you close your parentheses. If you leave an open-ended parentheses, you're going to get lots of error messages and things won't work out correctly. I'm going to hit enter. As would probably be expected in a random range of data between 1 and 1,000, the greatest common divisor is in fact 1, because none of those numbers are divisible by each other, so that doesn't necessarily surprise me too much there. You can jump from fairly simple things like greatest common divisor into standard deviation. Again, one that is not shown on the list over here, but if I just type in standard deviation, I am going to get a number of options because spreadsheet programs are designed for statistical analysis for a large part, is how they came into being. So I see over here that standard deviation is STDEV, so I'm going to simply type that in. And as soon as I start to type it in, notice it tells me that the standard deviation is there. I can select that. It gives me the parentheses. And then I'm going to select my range again, and I'm going to make sure I put my right parentheses or close my parentheses, hit enter. Now in this case, I would probably want to go back here, as I mentioned earlier, and I would want to format the number so that I have 2 decimal places, and so I can see the standard deviation for that range of random numbers that are there. Median and mode are 2 fairly simple things, again, that you may be using with some RTI students or some math students, and if you want to check a range of data to see if you have the median, you can do that. So we're going to find the median of this range of data, and if I'm uncertain, if I just start typing, if I put the equal sign and just start typing, okay, I have no idea what the command for median is. I'm not going to go to the list of functions and look it up, but instead I'm just going to start typing median, and there it comes up. And so Google obviously knows what it is that I'm wanting to do with that range of data. And so I have H1 to H10 there. I'm going to hit enter. I get my median value for the range of data that is there. So if you're not sure exactly what you should type to search for, let me back up. If you come over here, if your function isn't here, if you go to more functions and you can't find what you're looking for, but you're like, okay, I really want to find the median, or I really want to find the mode, just type equals and start typing mode. And yeah, you're going to get some things that may not look exactly correct, but if you keep going, Okay, there's mode. All right, and if I just hover over it without clicking anything, it's going to show me that it's most common value in the data set rather. And I am going to highlight that, hit enter, and notice I get a NA response because none of the values appear more than once. So a mode does not exist for this set of data, but that could be useful information. Notice the little red box pops up. It gives me an error on the screen, and it tells me exactly why it is that I'm getting that error message. So Google will give you a pop-up error message if you have done things incorrectly, and that pop-up message will show as a little red triangle in the right corner of your screen. The last formula here, and there are many, many formulas that I'm not even going to get into that are much more complicated than what I've talked about here. You can get into if-then statements and all sort of things like that. But I do want to show you one that's a little bit more complicated, but that could possibly have a use, and really just to show you something that's a little bit different than what we've done. So this is one that's called rank, and what it allows me to do essentially is it allows me to look at the set of data, and if I want to know where one number ranks in that. So if I had student test scores and I want to see where that student test score ranked among the thousands of student test scores that I have, I can simply find the rank command. And what I have to do for this one is a little bit different. I'm going to put the parentheses. I have to put the number that I want to rank. So let's say I want to know that 928. Where does that rank in my set of values? I'm going to put 928, comma. Now I have to select my range of data. So I have one more step here. I'm going to close my parentheses. So now I'm basically telling the computer, okay, I want to rank number 928 between J1 and J10. Where does that rank? And that is the second highest score. And if I look down the set of data, which is simplified, obviously, with just the 10 entries, I can see that 938 is clearly the highest number. So if I wanted to change that, I would simply click on it, and I would delete that up in the function area. And let's say this time I want to know score 435. How does that rank? Okay, 435 is sixth, so that's in the bottom half, and I can tell where that score ranks. Obviously, explaining all the functions is far beyond the scope of this section, but if you have further questions, I'd be happy to help you out. I would encourage you to explore the function sections. These are ones that could become useful in your classroom and hopefully give you some idea of how functions can be useful in a Google spreadsheet. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, I'm going to show you how to import the data from an HTML table into Google Sheets. This could be useful if you found a table of data that you wanted students to look at or analyze, but didn't want to direct them to the actual website where it was located. You can see in front of you here in the example, I have a table that is very raw, it has not been edited in any way, that shows the list of World Series that have ever been played, along with the winning team, the manager of the winning team, the number of games that were played, the losing team, the manager of the losing team, and a reference column, which I will show you in just a few minutes why that is there. And you can see as I scroll down through this sheet that all the World Series that have ever been played are in fact listed there, other than the 2016 World Series, which is currently being played and is not in the table. How did I get this here? Essentially, it is just a complicated formula or function. I need to find a website that has a table, and then I need to be able to import that table. In this case, I was at the Wikipedia entry for the list of World Series champions, and I see that there's a table right here that has the information that I want. I must look at the page carefully, though, and see if there are other tables, because if there are other tables, that information is going to be needed when I input the formula, and I will show that in just a minute. So I see there are a couple of other tables. There's the one for the winning percentage. I'm sorry, the series appearances by club, and then the years of appearance. And also, if I look at this carefully, it looks a whole lot like the other tables, and that is in fact a table. So it's good that I know that. So I'm going to go back over here. If I go to cell A1 and I hit delete, notice that all of my data is going to disappear. I want to put my table in starting at cell A1, so I'm going to hit the equal sign, which is the universal way to begin a function. And I'm going to type import, start to type import. Notice there are several options. You can import data from various different sources. You can even import pictures. I want to import the HTML file, so I'm going to stick with that one. I chose one of them just to do as a demonstration, but you can experiment with any of them if you would like and see how they could benefit you in your classroom. So I hit import HTML. This is a little bit more complicated function, so I'm going to have to put a quotation mark. What do I want to import? I want to import the list of World Series champions, obviously from this page. So I'm going to highlight the web address of this entire page, and I'm going to right click on that and copy it. Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to left click and paste it. I could also do that by doing Control V. I'm going to hit a quotation mark. I want to import that data. What do I want to import from that data? I want to import one of the tables. So I am going to type, I'm going to put a comma here after I'm parentheses. I'm going to put another parentheses, not a parenthesis, I'm sorry, a quotation mark, another quotation mark that says table. So this is essentially telling the computer I want to import the HTML. Where do I want to import it from? This website. What do I want to import from that website? I want to import a table. I'm going to put a comma, and then I am going to choose the number of the table. So it looks like that this is one table, this is the second table, this is a third table, and this is a fourth table. So it looks like it's going to be table number 2. Let's see what happens. I'm going to hit a 2, and then I must close my parentheses because I must always have a right close parentheses on any type of formula or function that I use in Google Sheets. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to say loading, and there goes the table that I want. So that's great. The table is there. Had it been the wrong table, very easy to change. I just go back here to cell A1, and let's say I look at that and I'd rather have the winning percentage table. I'm going to go down here, and it looks like the winning percentage is going to be sorry, not the winning percentage, the series appearance by clubs is going to be the third table. So I'm going to change this from 2 to 3. When I change it to 3, notice I get the winning percentage table. Obviously I'd done this before, so I said that earlier. The winning percentage table, that's not what I want. That was just a very simple table that is obviously incorrect. So I'm going to change that to 4. Let's take a shot and assume it's 4. Okay, so there are the series appearances along with the winning percentage. Let's just say that's the one I want now. I can keep that there. If I want to go back to my original one, it's obviously going to be as simple as clicking there in the formula bar and changing this back to a 2 and then hitting enter. If I want to clean this up and I want to center this, let's say I want to center the entire column, I can highlight the column, click the center option, and I can do that. If I want to make the title rows bold, I can do that. If I wanted to paint them with a background yellow color, I could do that. And I can clean this up and I can start to resize columns, and I just want to drag this maybe, and make it so that it's something that students could actually use and be useful for them. This could come in handy. You could then use the share button and you could share with any students that you have set up. You could type their email addresses in, they would appear automatically. This would allow them to analyze the data, but would not allow them to access the website that you got it from. So this might be a handy way around internet problems that you have if you're wanting students to look at some source of data that they're struggling to get access to. And of course, just like all other Google Docs, you can allow them to edit, view, or comment when you choose to share that with students. Hopefully you could find this feature useful and find some way to use it in your classroom. And I'll be back in the next section to talk about conditional formatting. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, I'm going to begin talking about conditional formatting. If you've never used conditional formatting before, it's a great way to see if any items in a set of data meet a certain criteria, and then have those items differentiated by changing the format of the cell that they are in. So you can highlight them, you can change the color of them, you can change the type of font. Those are the types of things that can be done with conditional formatting. You can see here that I have an example of 14 students, their names, the date they submitted a fictitious assignment, and the score they got on that fictitious assignment. Let's say that I want to look at the set of data and I want to have every assignment that was turned in after October 22nd highlighted so that I know it's late and I need to take points off for that. To do that, I would go to Format, and then I would go to Conditional Formatting. Once I've done that, it will pop up on the right side with a little toolbar, little taskbar. And notice that there are several options that are shown here. If I scroll down, one of them is Apply to Arrange. B8 is selected because that was simply where the cell that I had selected when I started the video. I want to apply that obviously to all of the data that are there. So I'm going to select A2 through C15. So I have all students, all the dates they submitted, and their score. I wouldn't necessarily need to have the score, but I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to hit OK. Now my next option is to format the cells if. So it has to meet some condition. That's why it's called conditional formatting, and that's why there's an if statement. So basically, if something happens, then what are we going to change the format to? So I'm going to click the down arrow here, and I have not the down arrow, the double arrow rather, and I have a number of options. I can choose, notice I can choose cells that are empty, cells that are not empty, if it contains text, if it starts with something, ends with something, if there are dates, if the number is greater or less than, there's all sorts of things you can do here. So I'm going to go date is after. It defaults to today, but I don't want that. I want to go to an exact date. So I click the double arrow again, go to exact date, and I'm going to enter October 22nd, 2016. And notice it has a default formatting style, which highlights it in this kind of blue with a black lettering. Let's say that I want to instead change it to a very bright yellow and highlight it there, and I want to change it so that the lettering is red. I can click there, and notice it gives me a preview over here, and I'm going to hit done. And now when I click away, any student who turned theirs in after October 22nd, who's going to receive points or point deduction, is highlighted in yellow and red. So I can simply look at that and see who has turned their assignment in late. I can add another rule if I would like. So if I wanted to look at scores above or below something, I could do that as well. If I click on the rules that are here, I can also, if I click over here in the range of rules rather, I can see that I have this conditional formatting. And let's say I've decided, okay, so many students turned this in late, I probably shouldn't give them a point reduction of this assignment. I can hit the remove rule button right here, and I can delete that rule. And to gain access to that, I simply click in the range of data that I originally selected, and then I click the remove rule. And now notice they are gone. So that's how you add conditional formatting by date. If you have any questions, let me know. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, I'm going to continue with the theme of conditional formatting, except for this time, in our fictitious set of data, I'm going to show you how to do the conditional formatting by the score of the student as opposed to the date they submitted that. So in this case, again, I am going to go to Format, and I'm going to go to Conditional Formatting, and my toolbar will pop up, taskbar will pop up over here, and I am going to again choose the same range of data, which is A2 to C15. Obviously this time I will need the scores, and so I'm going to hit OK. Again, it functions as if there's an if-then statement. So if some condition is met, then the cell will be formatted. So I'm going to click the double arrow here, format the cell if the number is less than. So let's say that I am concerned about any student who scored less than 15 on this, because it's out of 20 points. So anything less than a 15 shows me that they may not be quite at mastery. So less than, and my value is going to be 15. And I'm again going to, this time let me choose one of the defaults instead of creating my own. So I'm going to choose this pink with a black background. You could, of course, do custom as I did last time in the last section by choosing the fill color and adding that however you wanted. So I'm going to hit done, and if I click over here off of there, I notice there are 4 students who I may need to be a little bit concerned about because they're not at mastery level where they need to be. Again, if I wanted to get rid of that rule, I simply click in that range of data someplace, and I go over here and I can hit delete rule. If I want to modify it, I can click on it, and let's say that I think, okay, 15 is maybe, that's 75%. So let me go down a little bit. Let me go to 12, and I'm going to hit done. And okay, now I notice that there's only really one student who is not at mastery level. So I can edit a rule by clicking in the range of data, clicking on the rule, changing the number that I believe needs to be changed, and then go from there. That's how to conditional format by a range of scores. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, we're going to continue the previous 2 sections by continuing to learn about conditional formatting. In this case, we're going to learn about what is called color scale conditional formatting. This can be thought of as the advanced use of conditional formatting. In the previous 2 sections, we were able to analyze the data. However, we had to look at whether a certain criteria was met. It was either met or it was not. It was yes or no. There was no in between. There could be no range or gray area in that range. It had to be either yes or no. The color scale conditional formatting allows you to have a gray area as you look at data. Again, we have the sample fictitious data of 14 students, the date they submitted, and the score on the fictitious assignment that they submitted. I'm going to highlight the data that I want as A2 through C15. This is a little bit different than what I've done before, but I want to show you can do this as well. I'm going to go to Format and then Conditional Formatting, and if I do that, notice that my range will automatically be applied. If I accidentally got the wrong range of data, I can simply click here, and I can edit that range of data, or I can re-highlight it as needed. But I have the correct range of data, so I don't need to change that. Before, we always stayed here in the single color option. This time we want to go to Color Scale on the right side of the menu. And notice it already has defaulted into something. We don't need to worry about that right now. But let's say I want to look at this and I want to analyze the students who, as they scored and how their scores increased or decreased across the spectrum of who exists in this classroom. So I want the students who are in various danger of not mastering this concept to be highlighted in a bold red, and I want those students who have clearly mastered it to be in a white and know that they're in the clear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the red to white option right here, and I'm going to need to assign a minimum value, a midpoint value, and a maximum value. And I will do that by clicking the two arrows right here, and I'm going to insert a number. You could also do percents or you could do percentile. So if you wanted students who scored in the top 10%, students who then scored in the middle 20%. I'm just going to go with a number just to keep it simple. So let's say that my minimum point is 10, and anyone who got 10 or below is going to have a very bright bold red, so they stick out, so I know they have not mastered that concept. I want the midpoint to be a number as well, and I want that to be 15, and I want the maximum value to be a number as well, and I want that to be 20. Now notice that the minimum point is going to be highlighted in this bold red, the midpoint in kind of a pink, and the maximum point won't be highlighted at all. It will just be in white. And I'm going to hit done. I'm going to click over here and notice my two students who scored 20 obviously are completely bright white. The students who scored 19 are kind of this, barely tinged, and then it gets darker from there, and I can look out right away. Okay, sticks out right here that Sierra had a 10 and is in danger of not mastering that concept. So it shows me the scores from minimum to maximum with the students who need the most emphasis highlighted in that bold red color. If I want to change that, as with any range of data, I can simply click anywhere in the range, and then I can click on it, and I can change that. If I wanted to go with a yellow scale, I could do that, or if I wanted to customize, I could create my own custom scale. There's a variety of things that you can do here in terms of analyzing the data and showing how you're going to work with the students. The main important thing is to know that you're always going to select, I don't like that scale, that's bad, but if you're going to analyze the data, you have to have a minimum point, a midpoint, and a maximum point. That can be, I went with a number, it could also be a percent, it could be the percentile as well. So I'm going to go back to my original red scale, and I'm going to hit done. This can be a great way to analyze student data for PLCs and for other cases where you may need to know who's mastered a concept and who has not. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, we're going to take the information that we learned in the color scale conditional formatting, and we're going to build on that and learn how it could be even more useful by sorting the data based on the information in one column. You see here again, we have the fictitious students and their scores with what we left off on the color scale conditional formatting. So the students who scored very high and mastered are much lighter, and the students who did not score as well and may not have mastered have their scores highlighted in red. What we're going to do is we're going to sort those so that the students who are the ones that need the most attention are going to be at the top, so we know who it is that we need to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my range of data again, and I'm going to highlight A2 to C15. This time though, instead of going to format, I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to go to sort range. Notice that a menu pops up. I have several options here. The first option is data has a header row. If I had accidentally grabbed the first row that had name, date submitted, and scored, I would check that. But since I didn't accidentally grab that, I'm not going to check that button. Next, I'm being asked what I want to sort by, which column of the three I selected, A, B, or C. Obviously, I want to select C because that's how I want to filter my data. I want to, not filter rather, I want to sort my data by column C. I have another option here, and I can choose whether I want that to be an ascending or descending order. I want that to be an ascending order because I want the lowest scores at the top. Notice I can add another column, another sort column here. So if I wanted to sort by score first, and then I wanted to sort by date, I could put column B in here. I don't want to do that in this case, but it is an option that is available to you there. So you could have multiple scores and sort by the scores just in one column. So I'm going to sort by column C. I'm going to choose ascending order, which should put the lowest scores at the top, and my data does not have a header row. I'm going to hit sort. Notice that my color scale has now been set up so that I have the students who need the most attention, followed by the students who have mastered the concept at the bottom. So you can see that the color scale works as it was intended, but also that it's now set up so that the darkest highlighted scores at the top and the clear unhighlighted score is at the bottom, so that I know which students have mastered and which students have not. That is how you sort the data based on one column worth of information. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, I want to talk to you about how to protect a range of data within your spreadsheet and how to protect one of these sheets, which are these individual tabs, within the larger spreadsheet. I have not mentioned yet, or if I have only briefly, that you can share any Google Sheet the way you would share any other Google Doc or any item from the Google Docs suite simply by clicking the share button, and anyone at Greencastle Community Schools will be able to view, comment, or edit depending on how you share it with them and what privileges you give them. But let's say that you share this with someone and you want to give them full editing privileges because they need to edit part of the document, but there's part of it you really do not want them to change. So let's do for an example here. Let's say that you have the students, again, as we just sorted them based on the information in one column, the students who are not at mastery are at the top, and the students who are at mastery at 15 or above are closer to the bottom. So let's take the students who are at mastery or above, and they're going to be pulled out, but the students who are not at mastery are going to be retested, and we would want the person who is retesting them to be able to enter the correct information. So what I am going to do before I would share that document, I'm going to highlight every student who is at 15 or below and the date they submitted their assignment. And I'm going to go to Data, and I'm going to go to Protected Sheets and Ranges. And in this case, I want range. I've already selected my range, but again, if I have mistakenly selected the wrong range, I can type that in, and I can then hit OK. I can select it by simply dragging, but I've already done that, so I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to set the permissions for that. And who can edit that? I can do one of two things. I can show a warning, which is just going to say you shouldn't be editing this, but I'm still going to let you, but you really shouldn't be doing it. Or I can restrict it so that no one can access that except for me, even if I've shared that document. I could also make it custom, and I could add one or two other people to that list, but let's say that I'm the teacher who's in charge of those students and I really don't want anyone to edit it but me. I'm going to click only you, and I'm going to click done. The changes are saved. Now, if I share this spreadsheet with someone else, they are able to re-enter the names and the dates submitted and the score for the students who are not at mastery, but for the students who are at mastery, they can't change that information, they can't edit that in any way, and they are unable to change that information, that data. So it will be completely protected. Same thing as before. If you want to get rid of that, you simply click on it, and then you can hit the delete button and the trash can button, and that will delete the range of data. I can also give this range of data a name. So if I want to call it students at mastery, I can hit done, and now no one except for me is allowed to edit that section, students at mastery. So even if I share it with them, they click there, not going to be able to do anything. Let's do the same thing for a sheet. So I'm going to add a sheet, except for this time instead of range, I'm going to click on sheet, and it's going to give me a drop down here. These are all the sheets, all the sections of the video that I've gone through. So let's say that I really don't want someone to change my import HTML data because that was a tough formula for me to figure out. So I'm going to click there, and I can exclude certain cells if I want, and I can choose what cells I would let someone edit, but I'm going to share it with them, and I don't want them to be able to edit that in any way. And I'm going to call this importing HTML. And again, I can set the permissions here, and who can change that? I can customize it, I can copy from other range, or I can show a warning, or I can make it so that only I can change that. I'm going to leave it so that only I can change that. And so now anyone who, if I share this spreadsheet with anyone, they can edit anything that they want, except for this range of data right here that has the students who are not at mastery level, and all the way back at the beginning, they cannot edit the importing the HTML because that was a tough formula to figure out. So I've shared it. Other people have access to it, but I'm still the only one that can edit those parts of the spreadsheet, and that is called protecting sheets and ranges. Very useful format for controlling your data when you are sharing a document with multiple people in a setting such as the one we work in. If you have any questions on that or how to implement it, please let me know. Welcome back, GCSE teachers. In this section, I would like to talk about the Explore feature. The Explore feature is something that is relatively new to Google Sheets. It has just been added within the last year or so. And what it does is it allows us to look at the data in a way that we've sort of already done with things such as formulas and conditional formatting and sorting the data. However, it does it in a very quick way that doesn't involve us going through all of the steps. It provides more of a quick snapshot of the data that allows you to look at it very quickly without changing the entire layout of your spreadsheet in order to have the data shown as an end result based on that condition or on that sorting operation. I again have 14 students who have example scores and names. And if I highlight those 14 students, if I click on the Explore button in the lower right-hand corner, Google is automatically going to do some analysis for me. It's going to sum the data. That doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's going to give me an average. That could be useful. It's going to give me the minimum score, the maximum score, and the count. However, notice the count is double what it should be, because in this case, Google is doing a count all, which includes information that is in any cell. So it's a little bit different than the count that I showed you in this first section of the video. It's counting any cell that has data in it. It also allows you to provide answers, and it gives some suggestions. So if I want to know the median of the score, I can click on and I find out the median score is 16, and that's pretty close to mastery. That would be pretty good. Google will even show me the formula it used, which is the same median formula that we used earlier. Let's say I wanted to know the mode of the scores, and I typed mode of score, and it will tell me that the mode is 15, because 15 is the most occurring number within that range that I selected. If I scroll further down the Explore option, it will allow me to format this as a table. If I wanted to do that, I could choose to format as a table. I can also undo that if I don't like that. That's just basically a formatting option that is there. It will also provide me with some analysis. It will tell me, it will provide me rather, with a graph and tell me who scored what and where that ranks in terms of the possible score. If I want to zoom in on this graph, I can do that. It will show it to me just as a quick snapshot on my screen, as you can see. Or if I would rather, I can hit Insert Chart, and it will take that chart and it will put it into the sheet itself. And obviously all the names are visible there. It also points out a noteworthy fact that Sierra had the lowest score at 10. It's automatically picked that up, that that's something that I probably should be concerned about. So if I wanted to know the name with a score, I could do that as well. If I want to know the top name, I could do that. That is Kristen, and I can click that in the answer section. So basically, Explore very quickly provides me the 5 most common formulas, what they are for that range of data. It allows me to basically Google an answer from the data. It's not always going to provide me with an answer that I have, but going to provide me with the most common ones. It allows me to format it as a table, and it allows me to see a very quick snapshot of the data in visual form of a graph or a chart. And it also gives me what it believes is an important fact, in that Sierra had the lowest score. So the Explore feature comes in very handy. It's a really quick and easy way to get the same information that we had gotten earlier, but in a slightly different format that might be a little bit more user-friendly. Welcome back, teachers. In this section, I'm going to talk about the filter feature of Google Sheets. If you have used the filter feature before, hopefully you have found it useful. If not, hopefully this will provide you with some guidance of how the filter might be useful for either you or for your students in class or as part of a professional collaboration. In this example, I have the names of 9 individuals who have volunteered to work at either an AM or a PM session. If I were in charge of organizing the AM session, I would only want to know the people who had volunteered for the AM session. I would not need to know the people who volunteered for the PM session, nor would I necessarily want their information on the screen, because it might make it more difficult for me to sort out who I need to contact. In order to use the filter feature, you need to select the filter option. In this case, mine is shown under the More button. Yours may be shown elsewhere, because I zoomed in and that condenses my taskbar. Yours may show up immediately on your taskbar right here. And you identify it. It looks like a funnel right here. And there are 2 options. There's filter and there are filter views. You want to make sure you select filter, because filter views is an entirely different mechanism, and we're going to use that shortly in another demonstration. But for now, you want filter. It is important to select the range of data or the column that you want to filter. So in this case, I want to filter out only those who are in the AM session, because I'm in charge of organizing that. So I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to click on filter. Notice this little blue button pops up here, and the column becomes outlined in green. That tells me the filter has been turned on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click there, and notice it gives me the options to sort those. I can do a conditional formatting here, filter by condition. In this case, I just want to get rid of anything that is blank and anything that is PM, and I want only those who have volunteered for the AM session to appear. Because I've zoomed in, my OK is off the screen, so I have to click this, and then I can click OK. And now notice that I have only those individuals who have volunteered for the AM session. So if I were in charge of organizing that, I could be in contact with those people. If I want to get rid of the filter view, or if I want to see all of the PM people, I simply complete those steps in reverse. To view the PM people, I'm going to click the down arrow, and notice how it is green right now instead of blue, which tells me that this item has been filtered. I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure that I have the blanks and the PM people there, and I'm going to hit OK, and the PM people will and the blanks will reappear. And if I want to turn the filter view off completely, I can highlight that column and I can turn off the filter view and it will go away. So you can basically view and see part of the spreadsheet while not harming or deleting the other part simply by turning on the filter view. Hopefully that will help you out and you will find some use for that feature. Welcome back, GCSC teachers. In this section, I'm going to talk about the filter view feature of Google Sheets, and the filter view feature builds on what we just learned in the filter section, and what it does is it essentially allows you to create a filter but save that view so that you do not have to run the filter all the time. You can save that view and continually go back to the filter and look at the view that you have created. It also comes in very handy because if you share a spreadsheet with someone and you make them as a view only instead of an edit or comment, they are still able to view the filter views that you save. So if you share that with someone, they will be able to see any view that you have created, even though they will not be able to edit the spreadsheet or change the filters. They will be able to look at the filter view that you have created. So it's basically a way for you to manage and share your data without having anyone else change the filter. And it's also a way for you to go back and look at any previous views that you would like to look at. So sticking with my example here of the volunteers who are working at either the AM or the PM session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a filter view for the AM and a filter view for the PM. So let's say I was in charge of organizing these volunteers, but someone else is going to run the AM session and someone else is going to run the PM session. Then I would want those people who I share the spreadsheet with to be able to see who their volunteers are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the column that I want to filter by, and then I'm going to go to Data, and I'm going to go to Filter View, and I'm going to create New Filter View. And notice that I have the filter option that comes up on the column that I would like to filter by. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter for AM only first, and I'm going to hit OK. And now where it says the name, I'm going to change that to AM Volunteers. And then I can save that by tapping Enter, and I now have that filter view saved. So let's say that I want to create another filter view for just the PM. I'm going to go to Filter View again, and then I'm going to go to Create New Filter View. Oops, my mistake there. I need to highlight my column first, so I'm going to go to Data, Filter View, and then Create New Filter View. That'll actually give me a chance to show you how to delete an incorrect filter view in just a moment. And this time I'm going to filter by PM only. And I'm going to hit Enter, of course. And I'm going to rename this as PM Volunteers. Okay, a couple of things. First of all, now you can notice if I go to Data and Filter Views, I have 3 filter views. I have none, which would take me back to no filter view, so I can see everyone. I have the AM Volunteers, which shows me only the people who have volunteered in the AM. I have the one where I messed up and accidentally did not click my row header, so that's called filter 1. It actually in this case shows everybody, but notice the filter is here in the middle in column D where I don't want it. So to get rid of that, I would simply click the gear, and then I would click delete. And now that filter view is gone. It takes me back by default to no filter. So I go back to filter view, and now I can go AM, and I can go to PM, and I don't have to run the filter every time. So that comes in very handy. And again, if I share it with someone, even if I don't give them any editing privileges, they're still able to do those filter views. If you would like to learn more, obviously you can click the Learn More, and you can also, if you would like to explore further, you can check out the options, and this allows you, again, to rename. Update range comes in handy if you would like to, in this case, there are only 10 rows, I believe. But if you're associating this with a form, like with a Google form, and somebody else submits a form and they add into the 1001st row, you can just take 1001 and hit enter, and it will automatically update your filter view. You will need to do that for each view that you have because it will only search for PM in this case, and if it was the AM, it would only search for the AM. So that's an overview of filter view, which I have found to be a very useful function, especially when you are trying to sort out the data that you may have gathered from a Google form. Hopefully that helps you out. That kind of summarizes what we're going to talk about with filters, and then I'm going to wrap up with a couple of short sessions on graphs and charts. Welcome back, GCSE teachers, to the second to last section of the Advanced Google Sheets video. And in this section, I'm going to cover graphs and charts. Many of you may have inserted graphs and charts into Google Sheets before or programs similar, such as Excel. However, Google Sheets has recently updated some of the features that are available to you in graphs and charts, so I want to cover that. In this example, I have 14 students, their names, and the number of books they have read. And let's assume we would like to get them to 100 books by the end of the year. In order to create a chart or a graph, I'm going to highlight my range of data, including the header rows, which include the name and the book's read title. And then I am going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to Chart. And notice that Google will automatically recommend what it thinks is the best chart for me. In this case, I have two bar charts, a horizontal and a vertical bar chart. I'm going to choose the vertical just for demonstration purposes, and then I'm going to go to Customization. Once I go to Customization, I can change a number of things. If I would like to change the title, I can simply edit that here. I'm going to delete that, just call it Books Read. And if I would like for my title to be some other color, I can do that. So let's say that I want it to be red. I will change the color to red. I can choose whether I want the legend on the right, top, bottom, inside, or no legend. I'm going to leave the legend just where it is on the right side. I can choose what font I would like to use. So if I wanted to change some other font, I could do that. I can change the background color so that if I wanted to have some background against the blue, I could do that. What if I make it a light gray? There we go. I can change the features of the bars themselves. So if I want to maximize them, I don't like the way that it looks, I could do that. I could do things like compare mode. I'm going to go, notice that if I change that to maximize, it automatically by default moves the legend. So I'm going to move the legend back. I can edit the horizontal or the left axis, change the title that are on those, however I would like to do that. And I can again modify the colors of that, and I can modify the labels as well. So if I would like to have labels, I can put those on in various colors. I can add grid lines, major or minor grid lines, or I can set those up automatically wherever they are supposed to be. And if I want to make those black against the gray background, that would make them show up to a greater degree. And notice if I click on each student, I can see the exact number of books that they have read. I can change the scale. I can change the number format if I would like. I can insert a data label, so I can put the value so I know how many books each student has read. And I can change the color of that as well if I would like. And so let's say that I now want to change the number of books read, the physical color here of the book series. I want that to be school color, so I'm going to change it to purple. So it's purple and gray, and I don't like my red title. I'm going to change that back to a dark black title, and then I am going to hit insert. And that graph will automatically be deposited into my Google Sheets. That's one way you can take the customization that Google gives to you. So I have books read across the bottom, which is the number of books read, and then the student's name, and obviously I have their values that are there. I can also highlight the data that I want, including the header row, and I can go to Insert Chart again, just for another example. And if I don't like the options that Google gives me, I can go to Chart Types, and I can select any number of chart types that are already available and pre-made. I can do things like a line chart, probably wouldn't be great for this. We had the bar charts, which we just had, and the column charts. You could do a pie chart. You can do scatter plots. This is one that I think might actually come in very handy and be very useful for some of our elementary teachers perhaps. It's a gauge chart, and it shows an individual gauge for each student. And if I go to customization, it's set up so the range defaults from 0 to 100, and it shows the number that each student has here. So if I wanted to change this from 0 to 50, let's say that it was only 50 books required, I could change that. I don't want to, obviously, for my demonstration purposes, because I had everything set up as 100. I can also color the ranges. So if I wanted the students who were between, say, 75 and 100 books to know that they were right on target, they're green, they're where they should be, I can enter the minimum and maximum value. And if I want anything from 50 to 74 books to be, okay, cautious, you're behind schedule where you should be at this point in the year, I'll put that on. And then my minimum value, which is red, is going to be 0 to 49. That's basically going to say, hey, we got some problems here. Make sure you need to get caught up. This can also be a good gauge for things like SLO data. If you need that at the middle school level, perhaps that could come in handy for a gauge for each student. And then I can hit insert. So you could instead of having books read, you could use quizzes or something at the middle school level to determine your SLO data. And so then I have now a chart for every student, and I can enlarge this, I could print it, cut it off, give it to students, I could do a number of things with this, but I think the gauge is a chart that could come in very handy for lots of uses across the board by lots of our teachers here at Greencastle. It's just a quick, very quick and simple overview of how to insert a chart or a graph. If you have any questions on that, of course, I'll be happy to help you out, but there's so many options there that you can experiment with and try to manipulate that I think would be useful for you in your classroom and for your students. Welcome back, GCSE teachers. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. It is the start of the final section of the advanced use of Google Sheets, and hopefully you found some useful information. And in this video, I'm going to talk about one of the features that I recently discovered that I think may be one of the coolest things that I've found in a while. And this is a feature of Google Sheets that is basically an extension of the graph and chart feature, and also an extension of the conditional formatting. And what it does is Google Sheets will actually create a map of the world, and it will allow you to use the color gradients that were on the conditional formatting, and it will apply those to a map. So if you just create a list, I didn't import this list or this table from anywhere like the table of the World Series earlier. This is simply a list of countries that I made, and I then just went to random.org and I assigned each country a number. But obviously, you could have anything in there. I mean, there are a multitude of uses for this that you could have for countries across the world. And so if I highlight all of this, just like I was doing a graph or a chart, which is essentially what I am doing, and I go to Insert Chart, and I then go to Chart Types, and I scroll down and I find the map called the GeoChart. There is also the GeoChart with markers. We're going to do the GeoChart. I'll show the GeoChart with markers in a second. And notice that just based on the randomly assigned number, it is going to use that gradient fill, and it is going to create a map of the world, which I think is phenomenal. So as I said, the uses for this are endless. Obviously, you see maps like this all the time in social studies books and other places. So in my randomly assigned number, the US had 35 of whatever this random number is. Russia had 2. Greenland had what did Greenland have? 72, although I know Greenland's not a country technically, it's a protectorate of Denmark. But and so if you click here on your map, it will tell you not only the country, but it will tell you the number that was assigned to it. So in this case, it appears that the higher the number, the more green that it is, the lower the number, the more red that it is. So the US with 35 is very pale. And then growing to Russia, and then onward to the higher numbers that have green. So I think just a very cool feature that allows you to kind of explore some of the options that are available with a map. If I were to go back and do this again, we'll do the GeoChart this time, the GeoChart with marker rather. There it is, GeoChart with markers. And I do have some level of customization here. I didn't talk about this the last one. But I can, if I want to focus in on one area simply of the United States, I could do that. If I can set my colors differently. So if I want to have, my minimum value to be all this bright red, and my middle value to be the in-between red, and the maximum value to be the light red, so if they're all in the same gradient, I can do that. And then no value is going to be white, or I could set them to gray. And there's another example. So lots of cool things that you can do with this geo feature, and you can simplify it by moving in on one region. You can change the color gradient. You can do various things with the chart that you have. So be a fun thing to play around with. I think there'd be lots and lots of uses for this that would be really cool in lots of classes across many grade levels. All right, hopefully you found something useful in all of these videos and these little segments on Google Sheets, and I trust that if you have any questions, you will reach out to me and be in contact, and I will look forward to working with you on finding ways to use Google Sheets in your classroom.